Over 70% of automatic car owners are slowly killing their transmission and don't even know it. From silent fluid failures to one-button habits that melt your gearbox, these overlooked mistakes are racking up over $5,000 repair bills fast. Today, we're breaking down 21 stupid things drivers do every day that destroy their automatics without warning. First up is a habit so normal, you probably did it this morning, yet it's quietly shredding your gearbox from the inside. Mistake number 21, rolling reverse to drive shifts. You've probably done this dozens of times without thinking twice. Backing out of a spot, wheels still rolling slightly backward, and popping it straight into drive. Feels harmless, right? Wrong. Here's what's actually happening inside. Every time you do this, the transmission is forced to stop gears spinning backward and send them forward instantly. Imagine pedaling a bike backward at speed, then suddenly forcing it forward. Your chain wouldn't last long. Neither do your transmission's clutch packs. They overheat instantly, scorching the fluid and glazing friction surfaces, silently setting off a chain reaction. In fact, drivers often miss the early clues. A mild thud when shifting gears, delayed engagement on cold mornings, or gradually declining gas mileage. Ignore these warnings long enough and you're looking at burnt clutches and worn seals, eventually landing you a $3,000 to $5,000 transmission rebuild bill. The fix is ridiculously easy. Next time, pause just 1 extra second after reversing, literally count 1/1000 before shifting into drive. It costs you nothing, adds almost no time, and could literally save you thousands down the road. Mistake number 20, flat towing an automatic with the engine off in neutral. Flat towing sounds simple. Just shift to neutral, hook it up behind your RV, and hit the road. But if your car has an automatic, that shortcut can quietly destroy the transmission. Here's why. Automatics rely on the engine running to move fluid through the system. If the engine's off, there's no circulation, so everything inside spins dry while you tow. Within minutes at highway speed, parts start overheating. You won't hear a bang or see smoke, but the damage is happening. By the time you feel a delayed shift or weird whining noise a few days later, it's already cooked. That's why Ford and Chrysler limit this kind of towing to under 50 miles, because they've seen what happens when people ignore it. If your car wasn't built to flat tow, use a dolly, a trailer, or a special pump to keep things moving. Otherwise, one shortcut on vacation can lead to a $6,000 repair, and you won't even know it until it's too late. And just when you think your car's safe because it's off, the next mistake proves that silence can be deadly. Mistake number 19, mixing or using the wrong ATF type. Most people think transmission fluid is one size fits all, but putting in the wrong kind is like pouring diesel into a gas car. It might drive fine at first, but the damage starts quietly. Modern transmissions are picky. Each one is designed to run on a very specific blend, right down to how slippery it is, how it handles heat, and how it protects tiny moving parts. Even one wrong quart can throw things off. You might feel a weird shudder at 45 mph or notice your shifts getting rough. Then it gets worse. Burnt fluid, slipping gears, and one day, no movement at all. The scariest part? Most drivers never know what caused it. It happens at quick lube places, gas stations, even some dealerships. So always check the right fluid type. It's usually on the dipstick or in your manual. Keep a bottle in your trunk just in case. A $15 top-off sounds harmless until it turns into a $6,000 repair. By then, there's no going back. Mistake number 18, letting the car overheat. Most people think overheating means steam from the hood or a red warning light, but in automatic cars, the real damage often happens long before any of that shows up. Your transmission fluid starts breaking down around 200 degrees, and modern cars? They can hit 240 degrees or more just crawling through summer traffic or towing uphill without a single warning light. Once that fluid overheats, it loses viscosity, pressure drops, and clutch packs start slipping microscopically. That creates even more heat, burning seals, glazing friction plates, and triggering a slow domino effect inside the transmission. Many drivers ignore the first signs like burnt smell, soft shifts, a slight delay going into drive until it all stacks up into a $5,000 rebuild. The scary part? Most dashboards don't even show transmission temperature. So if you're towing, stuck in gridlock, or notice your fluid getting dark early, it's time to add an auxiliary cooler, keep your radiator clean, and always pull over if you smell something burnt. One good habit that is monitoring heat can save your entire transmission from cooking itself silently, mile after mile. And if you think topping off is always safe, the next one might make you want to double-check what's actually sloshing around down there.
Mistake number 17. Running with the wrong ATF level.
Too much or too little transmission fluid can quietly wreck an automatic. Most drivers don't realize how sensitive these systems are. A half quart off in either direction is enough to start a chain reaction. Low fluid, the pump starts sucking air, pressure drops, clutches slip, and temperatures spike. High fluid, the gears whip it into foam, creating bubbles that collapse pressure just as badly. The scary part is it won't always show right away. You might just feel a slight flare in the RPMs on a shift, or notice a burnt smell after a hill climb. By the time it gets to harsh shifts or delay going into drive, the damage is already deep. Overfilled systems can even puke fluid from the vent or blow axle seals, and many drivers blame a bad gasket or aging transmission instead of the real cause. Always check fluid the right way, on level ground, at the correct temp, and never just top off for safety. In newer cars, that means using a scan tool or checking the fill plug, not just guessing. Because even small mistakes here don't stay small for long. Before we move on, hit subscribe if you'd rather prevent a $6,000 failure than pay for one. We break down what actually matters before it breaks down on you. Mistake number 16. Skipping the parking brake. Sliding into park and walking away might feel normal, but what's actually holding your car in place is a tiny steel hook inside the transmission called a parking pawel. It's no bigger than a pinky finger, yet it's clamping down on over 3,000 pounds of rolling metal. On even a slight hill, the full weight loads that tiny tooth, and over time, it starts to crack and wear. That little jolt you feel when releasing the brake on an incline? That's the pawel slamming into gear. Do it enough times and eventually it snaps. When it does, your car can roll away, or leave you with a $1,500 to $4,000 repair job because the debris from that broken tooth circulates inside the transmission. The fix is stupidly simple. Foot on the brake, shift to neutral, engage the parking brake, then put it in park. That shifts the weight onto the brakes, not the transmission. Make it a habit, just like buckling up, because one lazy parking job can quietly ruin your entire gearbox. That was a $4,000 mistake you can avoid with your foot, but the next one? It hides behind a word automakers want you to believe. Mistake number 15. Trusting the lifetime transmission fluid label. When your manual says the transmission fluid is lifetime, it sounds like a relief. No dipstick, no service. But that word, it's marketing. It means good enough to survive the warranty, not forever. ZF, the company behind many of these sealed units, actually recommends changes every 50,000 miles. Even GM's own service bulletins backtrack on the promise for anyone who tows or drives in traffic. Over time, heat and pressure break down the fluid's chemistry. It thickens, loses its lubricating punch, and forms sticky varnish that gums up tiny valves inside the transmission. You won't feel it until your gears start to hesitate or the torque converter shudders at 40 miles per hour. By then, it's often too late. One shop visit for fresh fluid might run $400. Letting lifetime ride can turn into a $6,500 rebuild with zero warning. That silent wear starts as early as 30,000 miles. Changing the fluid doesn't kill transmissions, it saves them. The myth does the real damage. And if trusting labels sets the trap, the next mistake is what happens when your car actually tries to warn you and you ignore it. Mistake number 14, ignoring early warning signs. You're cruising at 40 miles per hour and feel a faint vibration, or maybe the engine revs a bit before shifting. It's small, easy to dismiss, but that's the start of something big. What you're feeling could be torque converter shudder or early gear slip, and it's often caused by weak fluid, sticky solenoids, or cheap sensors starting to fail. All fixable now for under $200. Modern transmissions are smart enough to hide problems, adjusting pressure, smoothing shifts, but that just masks the damage. Meanwhile, fluid heats up, seals shrink, and metal starts grinding where it shouldn't. Within months, that soft rumble can escalate to limp mode, blown clutches, or even total failure. Shops report full rebuilds hitting $4,500 to $7,000, all because someone ignored a 2-second shutter. If your car hesitates into gear, flares during upshifts, or sounds like a whine when cold, don't wait. That's your drivetrain whispering before it starts screaming. Scan for codes, check the fluid, and get ahead of it. A $60 sensor now can literally save your transmission's life later. Mistake number 13. Reusing the old transmission pan gasket. Dropping the pan to change fluid and filter, but slapping the old gasket back on, is one of the cheapest mistakes you can make, and one of the most expensive in the long run. That gasket's already been heat cycled, soaked in chemicals, and squashed flat by the last torque cycle. It may look fine, but it's lost its elasticity, which means it no longer seals evenly. You won't notice right away. Maybe just a faint ATF smell after a drive, then a few pink dots on the driveway. Then comes the slipping, or a soft 2 to 3 shift when it's hot. What's really happening is a slow leak that lets air foam the fluid, drops the pressure in your clutch packs, and cooks the ATF. By the time a code like P0730 shows up, you're already in rebuild territory. Gasket kits cost as little as $5. Reusing one to save time turns into a $3,000 shortcut. Techs see this all the time, especially from DIYers or lube shops that smear on RTV and call it done. Don't fall for it. If the pan's off, the gasket should be new, every time. Mistake number 12, driving with a dirty or clogged auxiliary transmission cooler. A lot of drivers don't even know their car has a second transmission cooler, but when it gets dirty or clogged, it quietly ruins your gearbox. It's usually tucked in front of the radiator, collecting bugs, sand, road grit, and even bent fins. And since your dashboard won't show a warning, most people assume their transmission is running cool. It's not. Even a minor blockage can cut fluid flow by half. That means less heat gets pulled out, and ATF temps spike, sometimes to 240 degrees or more, without a single sign from your temperature gauge. You won't notice it until it's too late. A lazy 2 to 3 shift on a hot day might be your only warning, and it disappears once the car cools. By then, varnish has already formed inside the valve body. The fix? Shine a flashlight into your grill once in a while. If you can't see daylight, airflow's blocked. Clean the cooler gently, never with high-pressure water, and flush it every 60,000 miles. A $300 service now can save you from a $6,000 rebuild later. A dirty cooler silently cooks your transmission. The next one turns it into soup, literally. Mistake number 11, letting coolant mix with your transmission fluid. There's a hidden disaster waiting in many automatic cars. The transmission fluid cooler is built right into the radiator. One small internal crack, and coolant pushes straight into the ATF circuit. You won't see any leaks, and the car might drive fine for weeks. But inside, your transmission is drowning in what's known as the strawberry milkshake of death. That pink emulsion looks harmless, but ruins everything. It strips the protective additives from the ATF, causes the clutches to slip, and foams up under pressure, meaning the gears can't stay locked. Even half an ounce of coolant can start a chemical breakdown that wrecks seals, solenoids, and friction plates. You won't know it's happening until it's too late. Maybe a harsh shift, a fluid level that seems too full, or a faint whine at highway speed. That $2,200 radiator you didn't replace? It just turned into a $5,000 transmission job. If you ever spot pink fluid on a dipstick or coolant bottle, stop driving immediately. Mistake number 10, skipping the first fluid and filter change after break-in. Right after your car rolls off the lot, the transmission is quietly shedding metal, microscopic flakes from fresh gears and clutches rubbing in for the first time. That break-in dust ends up suspended in the factory fill fluid, slowly grinding its way through valves, solenoids, and clutch linings. Most owners never think to change it early. Manuals don't mention it, and the transmission still shifts fine, for now. But filters aren't designed to catch this much debris, and once they start bypassing, all that metal keeps circulating. Over time, it polishes valve clearances out of spec, embeds into clutches, and makes every shift a little rougher. You won't notice until 40K or 60K miles, when flare-ups and converter shudder creep in. A $250 early flush could have caught it all before damage baked in. Instead, skipping it means you're betting the whole system can self-clean. Most don't, and the ones that fail later bring $5,000 repair bills with them. Early service isn't overkill, it's insurance. Mistake number 9. Rocking your car out of snow or mud by slamming drive and reverse. Getting stuck feels urgent, but hammering the shifter back and forth, drive to reverse every second or two, is one of the fastest ways to cook your transmission. Most drivers think it's harmless because the tires aren't spinning and nothing bangs. But under the hood, it's chaos. Each quick shift forces the transmission to slam torque in opposite directions while clutch packs are still spinning. At the same time, the torque converter stalls against resistance, turning engine power into raw heat. ATF fluid hits 250 to 300 DGEF in under a minute, hot enough to oxidize, lose shear strength, and start varnishing valves. That damage doesn't show up today. It shows up a month later as a harsh shift or a delayed drive engagement. If you're lucky, you'll just glaze the clutches. If not, you'll crack a sprag, burn a drum, or jam a solenoid, all from what seemed like a harmless maneuver. A $40 traction mat or $150 tow is way cheaper than the $5,000 rebuild, waiting if you rock too hard for too long. Even Ford warns, don't do it for more than 60 seconds, because they've seen what happens when you ignore that advice. So rocking out of mud is brutal. But what if just having fun at red lights is doing even more hidden damage? Mistake number 8. Full throttle takeoffs from every red light. It feels fun and harmless. Foot to the floor when the light turns green, let it shift at red line, then cruise. No tire squeal, no warning light, just a little surge of adrenaline. But every time you do it, your torque converter is turning engine power into heat. Lots of it. In those first 2 seconds, nearly 40% of your engine's energy becomes fluid heat trapped in the converter. That heat spikes the transmission fluid past 250 DGF, and at that temp, ATF starts breaking down fast, and the same cycle repeats as we've talked over and over in this video. If you've ever felt a weird 40 to 60 mph shudder or a burnt smell from the dipstick, it may already be starting. The irony? Most drivers doing this think it's a sign of a strong car, but modern transmissions adapt to hide early damage, until they can't. Then you're left with converter shudder, slip, and a bill north of $4,000. If you like your car's power, ease into it. Hard launches are fine once in a while, not 5 times a day in traffic. Mistake number 7. Driving with overdrive turned off during normal cruising. That little O/D off light on your dash? Leaving it on while cruising might quietly be one of the most expensive habits you don't realize you've picked up. Overdrive gears are designed to keep engine RPM low on the highway, cutting heat, saving fuel, and letting your transmission relax. When you lock it out, either from towing and forgetting, or just hitting the button to stop gear hunting, you're forcing the engine to run 15 to 25% faster at 65 bpr. That adds heat fast. In many cars, fluid temps can climb from 190 to over 230 degrees just from cruising in the wrong gear. You won't feel it at first. The car still shifts, it still pulls, but somewhere between the 40 to 60k mile mark, that habit can turn into a flashing transmission light, rough shifts, and a $4,000 rebuild. Unless you're engine braking downhill or hauling a trailer, leave overdrive on. It's literally built for cruising, and forgetting it just costs you power, fuel, and years off your transmission. Mistake number 6. Ignoring software updates for your automatic transmission. A lot of drivers skip transmission software updates because the car still feels fine. But behind that smooth ride, your transmission could be using outdated logic that shifts too hard, locks the torque converter too early, or pressures the clutches more than necessary, all of which quietly chip away at its lifespan. Modern automatics rely on finely tuned code to control pressure, slip, and shift timing. Car makers update this software regularly to fix wear patterns, reduce internal heat, and improve fluid life. If you're running an old version, you might be unknowingly overloading the torque converter or hammering clutches with extra line pressure. It won't throw a check engine light, But you might notice a light jerk at 30 mph, a cold morning thud, or faint buzzing on throttle. By the time it shudders or throws a code, the damage is already done. A simple $150 reflash could save you from a $4,000 rebuild. And no, pulling the battery doesn't fix it. That just resets the bad software. If your car has a TCM update available, get it done. Bytes are way cheaper than burnt clutches. If a few lines of bad code can wear down your gearbox, the next habit proves idling can cook it even faster. Mistake number 5. Sitting in drive while stopped for long periods. You roll up to a red light or drive-through, foot on the brake, transmission still in drive. Feels harmless, right? But under the hood, your torque converter is spinning like a blender against a brick wall, generating heat non-stop even though the car isn't moving an inch. At idle, the engine's still turning the converter's input side, but the wheels and output shaft are dead still. That means constant slip, which means constant heat. In summer traffic, just 10 to 15 minutes of brake creep can push ATF temps over 210 DGF. That's the zone where fluid starts to break down fast. 240 DGF, it may only last 10,000 miles before varnish clogs, solenoids, or clutches glaze and slip. The first sign might be a soft 2 to 3 shift or a faint shudder at 50 mph. But by then, you're already halfway to a $4,000 rebuild. Shifting to neutral when stopped more than 15 to 20 seconds cuts converter load, drops temps by 20 to 30 DGF, and costs you absolutely nothing. It's not about being gentle on the gear lever, it's about keeping your transmission from cooking itself every time the traffic stalls. Mistake number 4, skipping magnet cleaning at transmission service. When you change your transmission fluid but leave the pan magnet untouched, you're not really cleaning anything. You're just stirring the dirt back in. That small magnet, usually hiding at the bottom of the pan, quietly traps metal particles your filter can't catch. Over time, it builds up a gritty sludge that, if left alone, gets sucked right back into the valve body the second you start the engine. Once that magnet's saturated, it stops working. Fresh iron particles float freely, acting like liquid sandpaper on delicate valve surfaces and solenoids. Scoring builds slowly, pressure drops, shifts start flaring, and by the time you feel something's off, it's too late. The magnet meant to protect your transmission ends up feeding it metal. Clean it every time the pan is off. A $2 rag in 5 minutes can prevent a $4,000 rebuild. Think of it like your garbage can. Emptying the fluid but leaving the magnet full is like taking out the trash bag and leaving the rotten leftovers behind. That mess always comes back to haunt you. We're down to the final 3, and the last one might actually be hiding in your favorite weekend habit. But before that, let's talk about a move that looks cool in videos but silently melts transmissions. Mistake number 3, doing burnouts or letting the wheels spin freely. Lighting up your tires in an automatic might feel like harmless fun. Brake held down, throttle floored, smoke billowing. But what you're actually doing is turning your transmission into a pressure cooker. That torque converter, it's slamming fluid around at near stall speed, building heat faster than your cooler can keep up. In just 7 seconds, fluid temps can spike past 300 DGF. That's hotter than most automatics are built to handle. The clutch packs inside, yes, automatics do have them, start to glaze like a frying pan. Once that friction material melts and hardens, it slips under normal driving, not just under stress. Throw in metal debris from converter shock and foamed up fluid, and you've got the perfect recipe for valve body varnish, seal leaks, and full-blown failure. Even if the car drives fine after, that quick burnout could cost you $3,000 to $6,000 a few months later. Instead, let the tires grip before giving it power. It's not about killing fun, it's about not killing your transmission. Mistake number 2, changing the fluid but skipping the transmission filter. A lot of drivers think they've done the job right when they get a transmission fluid change. But if the filter wasn't replaced, most of the risk is still sitting there. That filters what keeps clutch dust, metal shavings, and torque converter grit from circulating through your solenoids and valve body. Once it clogs, the pump has to work harder, sucking air into the fluid and starving the clutch packs of pressure. That causes microscopic slip on every shift. And the more it slips, the more junk it sheds into the same clogged filter. It's a slow, quiet loop of decay. The damage usually doesn't show up until 60,000 to 100,000 miles in. By then, you're not looking at a $30 part anymore. You're facing a $3,000 plus rebuild. High temps, harsh shifts, pressure loss, all because a shop took the shortcut. So don't settle for a flush alone. Make sure the filter gets changed too, especially on sealed units where it's easy to forget. Mistake number 1, revving in neutral then slamming into drive. This one's been around forever. Rev it in neutral, then yank it into drive for a tire chirp and a quick launch. Looks harmless on TikTok, but what you're actually doing is slamming a dead-still transmission into motion with several times the torque it was built for. Inside, that sudden jolt twists the input shaft, blasts the clutch pack with 200 plus PSI, and hits the first gear sun gear like a sledgehammer. You're not launching, you're shock loading. The torque converter's turbine can snap its welds. Even the ATF foams under the spike, losing lubrication. Nothing cushions that impact. The fluid actually transmits the shock. You might not feel the damage today, but that microfracture, it's the start. Most cars that survive a few drops show delayed symptoms. Harsh shifts, shudder, burned fluid, then die 8 to 20K miles later. Repair bills? $5,000 to $7,000 easy. Want a clean launch? Use a brake torque instead. It's way safer and won't grenade your gearbox for a few seconds of cool. Avoiding damage is step 1. Now learn how to build a bulletproof car. Our next video shows 12 simple habits that help your ride hit 500K miles without breaking a sweat.